Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited, and I hope that this information is useful for you. So we will be discussing different things today, and I want to remind you that this is only about an hour. So you'll have some work to do outside of here, okay? So there's going to be some homework for you. But hopefully we get, some information about symptoms, some practical coping strategies that you can use. And so I'm going to give you, basically a brief, review of everything I learned in like 10 years of school. So this is what's important, okay? And then, yeah, I'll get the clicker. Good. Okay, so let's get started. So this is just the overview of what we're going to be going over. So understanding mental health. What is psychology? We use that word a lot, and do we really know what it is? What is it? We want to talk about the relationship between thoughts, behaviors, and emotions, the nervous system. We're going to go through like an imaginary exercise so that you can learn to identify some symptoms and how your body reacts to stress. We'll go over some common mental health disorders, and then we'll go into the strategies, some healthy lifestyle choices, setting limits, and then we'll talk about some resource at the end, okay? And if we have time for questions, we may go into it. I know that some of you sent questions, and some of them were very good ones and very complex too. And so hopefully we have some time to go over that, okay? Okay, so and then the objectives is going to be to learn to identify symptoms of anxiety and depression, to learn strategies that can be used to improve symptoms of anxiety and depression, identify the importance of mental health in our overall health, and then to understand the importance of the nervous system, okay, and just managing stress, why our body reacts the way it does, and then the implications on our physical health as well. Okay, so what is mental health? So the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration defines mental health as our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects the way we think, feel, and act. It helps us determine how to manage stress, relate to other people, and make decisions. And then when we're talking about the specific word psychology, when we talk about psych, right, that back in the day, when with the philosophers, the Greeks and the Romans, they really wanted to understand what we do, right? Why we do the things we do and why we think the way we think and feel. And so they felt that that was related to the soul. So psyche means soul in Greek, okay? So the study of psychology or psychology means the study of the soul, okay? Back then, they believed that it was the soul that made us who we are. And now there's different interpretations of what the soul is, but that's kind of how it started, okay? And so it is important to take care of and attend to your mental health, since neglecting it can affect your functioning, your medical health, and your relationships. And so, before we understood psychology the way we do today, we focus more in the biomedical model, right? We thought that that was the way we could explain illness and disease, and it was just very medically oriented, your biology, your chemistry, your anatomy, and that's it, right? And we even say body and mind as if our mind is like outside our body, right? We don't count it as the same. But that changed when Engel, came up with the biopsychosocial model, where he believed that health and disease are the result of the interaction of multiple factors and cannot be explained solely from one dimension, okay? And so this is how he saw illness, whether medical or mental, okay? So our well-being is determined, by all of these different factors. In biology, of course, our gender, disability, physical health, neurochemistry, stress, reactivity, genetic vulnerability. And then our psychology. So behaviors, personality, attitudes, beliefs, learning, memory, coping, and social skills, self-esteem and emotions. And then I would add, also our prior experiences, right? Like our traumas, the way we think, the way we believe, our belief system. And then the social aspect of our lives. So education, social support, peer relationships, family background, socioeconomic status, our culture, right? Politics is also important in determining our well-being. And then, of course, family relationships, life events, substance abuse. And so when we talk about mental health, we're talking about illnesses that can range from very mild to very severe, and they affect our thinking, our mood, and our behavior. So we can be a little stressed, or we can be very stressed, right? We can be a bit depressed, or we can be very depressed. So it's sort of like a spectrum, okay? And so you can have, like, for example, you can be depressed, but be functional to a certain degree, right? And like be able to go to work, but maybe that's it. Like you can't do anything else. You don't have energy for anything else. And they are affected, so they're multifactorial, okay, like we discussed earlier, and they're affected by biological factors, genes, brain, chemistry, and environmental factors, or life experiences, traumas, abuse, stress, our beliefs, and our behaviors. And then, of course, family history of mental health problems. And then depending on the intensity of symptoms, patient can learn to manage them with practical tools if it's, something more mild. But for more severe symptoms, it's important to seek professional help, okay? And the ideal situation here is that if you are going through a more severe case, you want to use all your resources, right? So studies suggest that when there's a severe depression, severe anxiety, the best treatment for you is going to be a combination of psychotherapy and psychotropic medication, okay? Because when we see a psychologist, when we see a patient that's very severe, they may not have the energy to do the things I'm going to ask you to do, right? They have no energy to get out of bed, they're not showering, they're not changing clothes, they're really neglecting themselves. And so, for me to be able to help you, you have to therapy, right? And so if you can't make it, then that's gonna be hard. So we would want you to go and probably see a psychiatrist so that they can prescribe something and help you with those symptoms so that at least, you can get out of bed, you can make it to your sessions, and you have some energy to do some of the things that you're gonna be asked to do in therapy. Okay, so that's the best approach. If you only do one, you may not get, the full results or the full benefits. Even if you only do the psychiatric medication, well, yeah, it's probably gonna help, but it's not teaching you anything new, right? You have to continue taking the medication for it to work, and you're not learning any strategies so that you can manage your stress on your own. So that's also not ideal, okay? So combination is the best. Okay, and so how are we gonna identify symptoms? And it happens so often where I see patients that, after I saw them for a couple of weeks, then they say, oh yeah, that happened to me too, like I can't sleep. But I didn't think it was relevant, And they don't make these associations about, probably what you're going through is a symptom of a depression. Like, it's not normal to not be able to sleep, okay? It's not normal to feel like you can't breathe, okay, on like constantly. So these are some of the symptoms that we want to look out for. So are you sleeping too little or too much? Okay, people who are very depressed tend to sleep a lot. It's kind of like a way of dying a little bit, okay? Like if I sleep, I don't feel anything, and I avoid these emotions and I avoid life, which is so difficult right now, right? But they can also sleep too little. I feel like that tends to happen more with anxiety because your system is so hyperactive, it won't let you relax. But then are you eating too little or too much? So same thing with depression, you may not enjoy food anymore. Something that you really liked before and caused pleasure for you may no longer cause pleasure. So it's possible that you don't enjoy it. But then the opposite is true, where you're eating so much because that's the only thing that causes pleasure, okay? Or because anxiety, you need some immediate comfort. Okay, so then difficulty getting out of bed, taking a bath, and just neglecting yourself in other areas. Maybe you don't have the ability to perform your daily tasks. Taking care of your children becomes very difficult, and then you feel guilty about it, right? Or maybe having a hard time going to work, going to school. You're withdrawing from other people that you usually like, or activities that you were interested on. And little or no energy. Again, your interests no longer give you pleasure. You may be more sensitive and think that nothing makes sense. It's like, why do I shower? What's the point of it? Are you more sensitive and think that nothing makes sense? Do you have pain or discomfort that has no medical, physical explanation? So remember, when we're talking about mental health, we're also talking about physical health. It's related, and our body reacts, okay, to stress and depression. And so there's this thing called somatization. Maybe you've heard of it. Soma means body in Greek, okay? So what it means is to make it body, to make it physical. And so if you are going through some stress, anxiety, depression, and especially if you're having a hard time expressing it, then it can manifest in pain in your body or other medical illnesses that have no explanation. It's like those people that go to the doctor and the doctor's like, there's nothing wrong, Irritable bowel movement, for example, it's one of those illnesses that is very heavily based on emotions, as well as migraines, for example, okay? So very important to also, take that into account. And then do you feel hopeless and helpless? Do you feel like things are just never gonna get better? So why try? Why go and seek help, right? If I've already determined that things are not gonna get better. So the way we're thinking, okay? Okay, so are you smoking, drinking, or using drugs as a way to avoid your emotions? And we talk about substance abuse, and a lot of times we see it as a flaw of the person that's experiencing substance abuse or addictions. But substance abuse and addictions don't happen out of nowhere. They're more of a consequence, okay, of a mental illness. So you're depressed, how are you going to deal with depression? You don't have the healthy coping tools, so you're going to engage in something that's going to help you somehow, but that's going to cause more problems, right? So they're kind of like these coping, unhealthy coping skills that people use to deal with their depression or to self-medicate. Do you feel confused, forgetful, nervous, angry, upset, worried, or fearful more often? During the pandemic, I don't know if this happened to some of you, but because I wasn't driving, to work. When I did start driving, I was very fearful of driving. It was like I was starting all over, and I doubt myself a lot, like, can I move lanes? Like, so, that's a result of the pandemic, and the times we live right now. So all of that also has implications, right? What's going on in the world and in our local community. Okay, so do you fight with or yell with family and friends more often? Do you have mood swings? Maybe they're starting to affect your relationships, negative thoughts or unwanted memories that you can't get out of your mind. Do you hear voices or believe things that aren't true? This is getting into the more severe symptoms. And then are you thinking about hurting yourself or hurting someone else? Okay, so that's definitely something that's definitely a symptom that you would want to get more professional help for. And so when you're talking about psychology, well, there's different orientations, right? But if you want to be in line with what science says and with evidence-based practices, you're probably going to be a cognitive behavioral therapist. And so this is the model for cognitive behavioral therapy, which is really the one that has the most effectiveness, okay? And the most research, and really insurances don't pay for anything else. Because so you can go and get psychoanalysis if you want, but you have to pay for it on your own, okay? So this is the model that we work with. And so we're talking about basically, how all of these things interact to cause mental illness, okay? So the situation that you're in, okay, of course that's gonna trigger something. But then, so let's say I work with chronic pain patients. So let's say that you injure yourself at work, okay? That's your situation. Of course it's a stressful situation and we don't wanna minimize it, right? And so what are you thinking? What's going through your mind when you have chronic pain and you lost your job or you're out of your job because of that? You're having these thoughts, right? Oh my God, am I going to be able to go back to work? Is my pain going to go away ever? But we call that catastrophization. Catastrophization has been found to be a factor that maintains chronic pain, for example, okay? How the way you're thinking about your pain increases your pain because it makes your body and your nervous system feel more in danger. And pain is a result or an estimate of what our brain thinks, or the amount of danger that our brain thinks we're on, okay? And so if we give them more thoughts, more negative thoughts, we're gonna feel more in danger. Does that make sense? Okay, so thought. And so catastrophization happens not only with pain. I mean, pain catastrophization is like a thing. There's a specific field of research on that. But we can catastrophize about anything, right? Any situation. So, okay, so what we're thinking, and then what we're feeling, because our thoughts, are gonna create emotions, okay? So if I'm catastrophizing, I'm probably gonna feel very fearful and very hopeless and helpless, right? So then that's my emotion. And then what am I gonna do? So if I have these negative thoughts, if I have anxiety, fear, and I have pain, what could be some of my behaviors? What do you think? Anyone? Yes. And in particular with chronic pain, for example, fear of movement, okay, because it hurts, is going to actually lead to higher pain. Okay, so the research indicates that The more fear of movement that you experience, the more pain you're going to experience. It maintains pain because you're not moving, you're protecting your body. And so your brain kind of learns that, oh, don't move your arm. You're going to break it. So movement is very important in managing chronic pain, okay? But yes, so avoiding not getting out of bed. Why should I get out of bed? I'm not going to work. I don't have anywhere to be. I'm not going to shower. And then is it going to help for you to be in bed all day with your blinds down? Is that going to make the pain go away? Probably not. It's probably going to make you feel worse because now you're self-loathing. You're like very self-critical. You feel guilty. Oh, look at me. I didn't even shower. I'm so useless, right? So that's going to create more negative thoughts, okay? And then all of this also creates bodily sensations. You may start having a headache, right? That has nothing to do with your accident at work. It has more to do with the fact that you stayed home, having negative thoughts, and you're in bed all day. Maybe other things are going on, digestive problems. We'll talk about more about the bodily sensations. Numbing, tingling, all of those are like somatization. You're making it physical, or your mind, your brain is making it physical. And so we'll have more negative thoughts, and more emotions and more behaviors, more bodily sensations. They all kind of feed the other, and so they become worse and worse and worse and worse. Okay? Any questions, thoughts? Has that happened to you? It's happened to everyone, okay? I mean, that happens to all of us because we're all human. We all have stress at some points. It's just more like how much is it happening to you? How intense, how frequent, right? We're all gonna have symptoms like that. But again, when we're not very depressed or very anxious, we are able to filter them out or ignore them or question them more easily, okay? When we're depressed, it's just they're gonna be very intense and just very difficult to ignore, very intrusive and repetitive. Okay, so we're gonna do a little exercise here where I want you to go through this imaginal exercise, right? So imagine that you're lost in an alley in a part of the city that you do not know, and you're trying to find your way out. So I want you to think, what is happening in your body? What are your physical reactions? What are you thinking, and what are you feeling? And if you want to just kind of yell it out. So let's see. So what are your physical reactions? Heart palpitations, tension, sweating. Anyone else? Cannot breathe. You are very agitated. Okay, good. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Yeah. In this situation, it's a good thing, right? What are you, and we'll go over that more in depth, okay? What are you thinking in that alley? Yes. The worst is gonna happen, right? Someone may come out of the somewhere. They're gonna hurt me. Is anyone here just gonna be able to relax and just kind of sit down and chill for a little bit? No. What if you're with your partner? How would you react to them? They want to go the opposite way. You tell them. Maybe some like irritation too. Okay, so what are your emotions? How are you feeling? Panic? Nervous? Yes, good. Okay, so now imagine that you've already left the alley, you're home. How are you feeling now? Relieved? What is your body doing now? Relaxed. Okay, good. What if you're already home, but you're still catastrophizing? You're still thinking, what if someone followed me? With no evidence that anyone followed you. What would continue to happen? So more tension, still the heart rate, breathing difficulties, more fear. Okay, so that's what we don't want, okay? We want everything else that happened because that's protective, right? Feeling fear is not a bad thing. We need fear when we're in situations like this because it's gonna help us escape danger, escape dangerous situations. But once we make it home, we want to be able to relax. We want to be able to notice, that we're no longer in danger, and we want to send that message to our brain so that our brain knows that we're now safe. And so now, once we get home, our brain says, "Oh, you're out of danger. Let me help you relax." Okay, but if we're still playing this horror movie in our mind, then we're still gonna have those same symptoms, okay? Even though now we're safe. And that's gonna happen a lot to people who are very anxious and for people who have PTSD, for example, that have experienced a traumatic event where their nervous system has learned that the world is dangerous, okay? You need to always take care of yourself. You need to always be ready to run. Those patients are going to have a hard time relaxing. And so this is the fight or flight response, okay? You probably have heard that before. Fight or flight, I think that's the most common one that we hear, but there's others. There's also the freeze response and the fawn response. And that one happens when there's abuse, long-lasting abuse, where you want to like almost become invisible, and you want to say yes to everything because you don't want to get, these people mad, right? So you're always very submissive. You try not to talk a lot. You talk very slowly, or so that you don't cause problems. Okay, so that you're not an inconvenience to others. That's also a survival response. Okay. But let's talk about the nervous system because you all mentioned some physical responses that we experience when we're under stress, when our brain feels like it's in danger. You mentioned some really good ones, but there's a lot more that maybe are not as obvious and that we don't realize are happening, okay? But so this is the nervous system, and the nervous system has very important implications on emotions, thoughts, and physical reactions. It's really kind of like the power plant in our body. Okay, so think of your body as an electrical system, okay? And so the brain and the spinal cord up to here is the central nervous system. And that's the plant in your body, the electrical plant in your body. All the signals, everything you experience, everything you do, movement, thinking, talking, eating, pain, any physical sensation that you experience really comes from the brain. Hunger, okay? When we experience hunger, for example, our brain communicates with the stomach, and the stomach tells our brain, "Hey, there's no nutrients here. This person hasn't eaten like since 4 hours ago." And the brain says, "Panic, you may starve, you need to eat." And so it sends us that hunger feeling to kind of let us know that we need to eat. And we have to kind of think about back in the day, okay? Stone Age. We were living out in the wild, and food wasn't as readily available as it is right now. We can just go out here and grab some food. Back then, we had to plan it out and go and hunt. So every time we did that, we were faced with death, okay? So the dangerous situations that we experienced back in the day were a lot more frequent and more intense. We don't have that anymore, luckily. But our brain and our nervous system still reacts in the same way, okay? And maybe you know people that, for example, they don't eat at 12 p.m. and they get a migraine, right? Or they're just very sensitive, or they get hungry, right? It's because of that, okay? Because your nervous system, your brain, is trying to help you, okay? It's trying to protect you. It's telling you, you need to eat, you're gonna starve to death, okay? But it goes a little overboard sometimes. It's like this helicopter parent, okay? It's like really trying to protect you. And the thing is that if you've already had some traumatic experiences in the past, or just stressful experiences, your brain kind of has learned that, yeah, your life is dangerous, so you really need to take care of yourself. You really need to always be ready to run and escape because the world is dangerous, okay? And that's, there are, things that are dangerous in the world, but are we always in danger? Are you in danger right now? So it's also about recognizing that and helping our brain, okay, to recognize that maybe I'm not in danger right now. Maybe I'm safe. And we'll go over that a little bit more in a bit, okay? So that's our brain, spinal cord. Again, this is all the central nervous system. And then the blue ones, right, that's the peripheral nervous system. And I think of those as cables, okay, like electrical cables, like the ones we charge our phones with. And those send the electrical impulses from the electrical plant to the rest of the body. Okay, so if you have pain here, carpal tunnel, okay, where does it come from? Well, all pain comes from the brain, okay? But not in that sense that you're imagining it, okay? Because that's sometimes what the message, right, that sometimes we send without knowing, without the intention, right? So the brain produces pain. It sends it there to tell you, hey, there's something wrong with your arm, okay? Through the nervous system, through the nerves. So if these cables get damaged, what do you think is going to happen? What is it? Well, pain, numbness, for example, okay? But also if we're stressed, if our brain is producing a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, it's also going to send those signals to our body because it's like an alarm, okay? So stress is an alarm. Anxiety is an alarm that our brain developed to warn us about danger. And so it's going to deploy all these alarms all over your body to tell you that you're in danger, okay? So it makes sense that we do that we somaticize, right? That we make it body because our nervous system is kind of telling us something, right? But let's go over the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nerves, because these are the ones responsible for the fight or flight response, okay? So the sympathetic nerves, they're the ones that become activated when we are in danger or when we perceive danger, even if danger is not real. So some of the things you said that will happen, are here. But let's, start with our eyes. Our eyes become dilated. Why does that happen? What do you think? I'm sorry? Yes, so we can see better, okay? We can see danger better. Then, we relax the airways. That's so that we can breathe faster, but slower and, like more superficial. It's only getting to our lungs, okay? That's gonna help us raise our heart rate, okay? And then we inhibit the activity of the stomach and the intestines. It really wouldn't be a good idea for us to have to go to the bathroom when we're being chased by a bear, okay? So our brain says, you don't need that right now, okay? Same thing with hunger. You don't want to get hungry, just wouldn't help you survive. So it inhibits those responses. So now, doesn't it make sense that we'll have digestive problems if we're always on fight or flight, right? Because those functions are not working right. So constipation, a lot of the times is due to stress, okay? Other digestive issues as well. Okay, and then sugar levels, okay? People who are diabetic are gonna have a really hard time if they're always on fight or flight because our liver is the sugar deposit, right? So it releases sugar when it thinks we need it. And so if we're on fight or flight, it says, oh my God, you need so much energy so you can run, right? And so it releases a lot of sugar into our body. And so our diabetes is going to be out of control, okay? We also produce epinephrine and norepinephrine, which make adrenaline, and so that's what's going to help us really give us that, rush. And I have so many patients, that have experienced traumatic events that will tell me that, they were being assaulted, they were on the floor, they were being kicked, they broke their face, and they say, I didn't feel pain, okay? Or other people that will say, I don't know how I pushed this man, and I ran, and I don't know how I did that. Well, that's why, okay? Because our body is helping us prepare or escape danger. And then pain, has implications here too, because pain, our brain kind of makes priorities and it says, you need to survive first. You need to get up and run. So the pain can wait, So this patient in particular is like, I didn't feel any pain until I, got to the hospital. And so that makes sense, because the brain's like, oh, you're safe now. By the way, you broke your bones. So that's what happens in fight or flight. And other things happen, other things that are not listed here. For example, our senses, okay, become more acute, just like our eyes, just like we can see better, we can also hear better. And any like tactile, response or stimuli is gonna be more intense as well, okay? So it's like we hear a noise in the alley and we're like, what is that, or a leaf falls on us and, oh, what is this, So people that are anxious have, everything bothers them, right? like, oh, like that noise, the clock bothers me, right? I have patients like that. It's true, okay, because your brain is more in tune to those that stimuli because it's thinking, is that dangerous? Okay. Okay, so then the parasympathetic nerves do the opposite, right? Helps you constrict the pupils, constricts the airways, the heart rate slows down, stomach and intestines go back to normal, same thing with the liver. And this is when you can finally say, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. Or like, oh, I can finally eat something. And, it happens to us even when we are like trying to catch a plane. Like you're all anxious trying to get to the airport because you're running late. And then you finally make it. And you're like, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. or I'm hungry, That's because now you're able to do that. Now you have time to think about that. Okay? Okay, good. So, let's talk about some risk factors that can sensitize the nervous system. Okay? I work at a clinic for chronic pain. It's a rehabilitation clinic for chronic pain and brain injuries. And we have a whole program, okay? It's an intensive outpatient program. Everything we do there is to calm down the nervous system. It may not seem like that at first, okay, but it's the diet, the anti-inflammatory diet is gonna help you calm the nervous system. because certain foods are going to cause this sensitization of the nervous system. So sugar, for example, certain meats, red meats, pesticides in food, things like that, right? So um, everything we do is with that intention. Um, but stressful or traumatic events, history of abuse, trauma, deprivation, housing and food insecurity, loss of a loved one, work stress, relationship problems, mental or medical illnesses of others, loved ones, and just any other situation that makes you feel unstable, unsafe, or in danger. Your own thoughts, okay? You have this negative pattern, negative thought pattern, because you learn that somehow, maybe at home, maybe they used to tell you you were dumb, or oh, you don't do anything right, or you had like food insecurities, then your brain is going to learn at a very young age that, again, the world is dangerous, okay? You need to be ready to escape and survive. So let's talk a little bit about work stress, because, I'm sure everyone here does that to a certain level. So work is very important, for well-being. Again, I work with patients who are not working right now because they were injured. And it's such a difficult thing for them to not be able to work, because work, aside from the financial rewards that we may get, we get other rewards, okay? We feel satisfied, we feel useful, we think we have a purpose. Um, we may have friends at work, right? So we're able to socialize. So it gives us social stimuli, social rewards, okay? And if they take that away, it's gonna be difficult. Um, However, sometimes that can also cause emotional stress. And so, worrying about projects, feeling treated unfairly, accepting more than you can handle in hopes of receiving a promotion or wanting to help, having difficulty setting boundaries, that's very important. Okay, one of the things that helps us with managing mental health is being able to set boundaries, okay? Saying no sometimes. Um, and then layoffs, restructuring can affect your perception of security. Also, sacrificing other important areas of your life can affect your stress. And studies indicate that just the rumor of a plant closing can cause changes in blood pressure and pulse. And workplace accidents tend to increase when jobs reduce personnel. Uh, and so the body reacts to stress, okay? Stress can cause unhealthy eating habits and affect our activity levels, which will affect our physical and mental health and cause problems such as obesity, high blood pressure, cholesterol, anxiety, and depression. So cardiovascular issues are really, really associated, okay, with stress. And as a matter of fact, there is evidence that people have the most heart attacks on Sunday night or Monday morning. Okay? Why is that? And I think males even more. Um, why is that? Well, you're already thinking about what's going to happen the next day. It's like, oh, what a work. Okay? So that's important. Um, Loss of mental energy, stress can cause emotional exhaustion and negative or cynical attitudes. For laborers, because they exert little control in their work environment, they're more at risk of cardiovascular disease than those who work in an office. And working long hours and having very low wages can also lead to cardiovascular and emotional problems. Okay, so how are we gonna manage stress? Okay, well, take breaks, because there's so many workers that don't take breaks. I have so many patients that will tell me I never took my break. I never took my lunch, and sometimes they say it as like a proud, something to feel proud about, which is great because they have really work ethic and, that's a good thing, but not when it starts affecting your health, okay? We want to take some breaks. We want to go outside, maybe breathe fresh air, take a walk, um, have some social interactions, okay, with people you like, not with. um, but there's studies that say that even just having a short conversation with someone really helps in managing your stress levels. Walk away from certain situations that may cause stress. Set reasonable standards. So, do you say yes to everything and don't know how to say no? That happens a lot, and I think it's a major source of stress in some jobs. Okay, just kind of because maybe that's your role, like that's the role you've taken all your life at home. Like you are the one that does everything. Someone gave you that role, you took it, or you just took it, and so that's what you do all the time, everywhere, with everyone. So, okay, start kind of reflecting on that. Okay, am I taking just too many responsibilities that are not mine? Um, so yeah, do you feel responsible for everything that happens at work and take responsibility for things that are not yours? Set limits, don't expect perfection. Okay, people that are perfectionists tend to have more anxiety, okay, and depression and obsessive compulsive disorder. That's because it's just so hard for them, to accept imperfection and to be flexible and change things. It's like their nervous system has learned if it's not like this, something really bad's gonna happen. Okay, so are you inflexible? Okay, and also not everyone, even if you are, not everybody else is. So you're gonna have a really hard time, and everyone is just gonna be a disappointment for you, right? So again, setting those standards or adjusting your standards. Um, and then, of course, clarify your job description. Okay. Okay, well, I think another very important thing when it comes to managing stress, okay, is your identities. What identities are part of who you are? Um, we don't think about that, and it's so important. So, who are you? If I ask you, who are you, what would you tell me? Shut it out. What is it? You're growing? Good. What else? Nice, very nice. Okay, so we have some good ones here. Okay, well, so aside from being a worker, what other identities do you have? Okay, are you a dad, a brother, son, friend, dancer, fisherman, runner, someone who likes to read, okay? Someone who likes to work on themselves and their mental illness, someone that prioritizes themselves, okay? That's important because when we're at work, a lot of the times we define ourselves by what we do, right? And we stop nurturing our other identities, right? It's like, oh, I work so much that now I don't really have a relationship with my kids or my friends, or I never see my friends anymore, right? Well, those things are important. Work is important too. It's not the only thing that's important, right? So it's also about nurturing all the different identities that you are. Okay, that's important, and I see it a lot with my patients because they lost their jobs, or I mean, at least they're not working right now. They feel so empty. Okay, and when there's chronic pain or when you're a patient of something and you lose an identity like work, well, guess what you have now? Your pain identity, right? So now you're a pain patient. Okay, and that just kind of fills that void. And a lot of people who are again very invested in their careers are going to make those types of errors where they really neglect their other identities. And when they can't work for whatever reason, now they don't know what to do, okay? Because they don't have anything else. So hobbies, what are your interests? What did you stop doing because you don't have time? Um, so have you forgotten to nurture your other identities? Okay, that's very important. So you want to manage your anxiety, your stress, you need to work on this. So, this workshop is not going to fix it, right? You have to go out there and work on it. It's a long-term type of strategy. Okay, so some common mental illnesses, anxiety disorders are the most common ones, characterized by excessive fears, worries, um, that cause changes in people's behaviors and functioning. It includes generalized anxiety, panic disorder, which is characterized by panic attacks, separation anxiety, fear of separating from other people with whom you have a strong attachment. That happens to kids a lot. And then the depression disorders. So, remember that depression is not just being sad, okay? Because we can be sad for a lot of things, and that's very normal, very human. Depression is a lot more than just being sad. It's it can make you feel irritable, feel empty, feel loss of interest, and inability to feel pleasure. It has some physical symptoms too. There's like this psychomotor retardation where you do things a lot slower, okay? And then cognitively, your processing speed slows down as well. Your attention gets affected. Um, you may have a hard time concentrating, feeling guilty, feeling worthless. You think a lot about your past, like your perceived failures. I failed on this and I failed on that. I shouldn't have done that. Um, you go back and try to see where the error happened, and just kind of ruminate on what happened in the past. Um, So hopelessness about the future, thoughts about dying or suicide, trouble sleeping, changes in appetite and weight, feeling tired all the time, or low energy. And then, of course, people who have depression have a higher risk of suicide. People who, commit suicide, it's not because they really want to die. They just don't want to suffer, right? So that's the only way they see they can accomplish that, by dying. But if someone were to say, okay, I guarantee 100% that your life can improve, maybe, they wouldn't make that choice, right? If they really believe that it could happen. Um, and then psychological treatment and medication when the problems are severe are effective treatment. So like we mentioned before, the combination of psychiatric medication with psychotherapy is the best treatment for severe depression. And so this is the anxiety iceberg. When a friend tells you that they're anxious, maybe you'll see some of those symptoms, but there's a lot of other symptoms that we don't see, and that a lot of the times people feel very embarrassed about, so they try to hide them. Um, so it may not be so obvious, okay? And then this is a depression one. So same thing. A lot of the times people try to mask their depression, and we see that in a lot of like famous people, right, that have committed suicide. Like they look so happy, and that's so exhausting for them, right, to have to mask it when they're in social setting. Okay, and then this is the wheel of emotions. Sometimes we we only talk about certain emotions, but there's a whole range of them. And so being able to kind of point them out and it's like, oh, this is the right way I feel is important. Um, and group therapy helps you a lot with that because since other people share how they feel, sometimes there's patients that they're like, I feel like that, but I didn't know how to say it. So it's really cool. So emotions exist for a reason. They're all human and necessary in our life. But we want to have a range of emotions and not stay in one in particular. Okay, so if we're only in anger, we're only in depression, we want to see what we can do to get out of that. Okay, because even though it's not a bad thing to experience all those emotions, we don't want to always feel angry, right? That wouldn't help us function very well. Okay, so now what can we do to manage stress? So now you're all experts on identifying symptoms, right, and physical sensations. So how are we going to deal with those? Um, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to look at the time really quick. Okay, we have time. um, so, okay, so behavioral activation. I'll go over some of these. I think I'll go over most of them. Um, so, okay, behavioral activation, very important. Um, what's behavioral activation? Does anyone here know what that is? It sounds kind of fancy, but it's not. So I'll go over that. And then increase dopamine production, increase serotonin production. Yes, those are chemicals in our brain, but they get affected through environmental factors, right? So we can actually help our brain produce more of those, um, doing some certain things. Paced respiration, diaphragmatic breathing. I'm sure you've all heard of something like that. Um, that's very important, okay? And it sounds so simple, but it really does have a very important effect on our mental health. So remember, we were going through the nervous system, okay? So our breathing is going to activate either the sympathetic or the parasympathetic system, okay? So if we're breathing like this, what do you think is going to happen? We'll activate the sympathetic, okay? So we communicate with our brain through breathing. And I don't miss, oh, we'll see. Okay, so we communicate with our brain through breathing. And if we start breathing in an agitated way, we're communicating to our brain that we're in danger. Okay, and so we're going to make our brain say, oh my God, you're in danger, let me help you run. Okay? And so, what is deep breathing going to do? The opposite. Okay? Okay. It's going to communicate to my brain that I'm safe through deep breathing. And my brain says, oh, looks like danger's gone. Let me help you relax. Okay? So that's why breathing is so important. You're sending these messages of safety to your brain. Okay? And that has implications with so many things: sleep, medical issues like diabetes. Okay, if your liver is constantly releasing all these sugar levels um, because you're stressed, you tell your brain, "Hey, I'm safe." Then your liver says, "Oh, okay, let's go back to normal." Okay. Also, pain. Okay, pain again. It's an estimate of how much your brain thinks you're in danger. physically. So if you tell your brain that you're safe, your brain says, oh, then I don't need to send you pain because you're safe. Okay? So very important. Oh, okay, yes. This. So behavioral activation only means do something. Okay? Activate your behavior. Did we go over all of this? Okay, so we're also going to talk about grounding. No, I think we're not going to talk about that one. Questioning our negative thoughts, cognitive distortions, practice gratitude, set limits, learn to say no, and ask for help. Okay, so behavioral activation. So when we're talking about depression, the main strategy, okay, that we use and what's proved to be most effective to manage depression is behavioral activation. Okay, so let's go over these models. Okay, so let's say we're no, sorry here. We say we start to feel low a little bit. Well, we become less active, right? And so then fewer rewarding things happen. Mood gets lower. Okay, so it's now like, oh, I don't want to get up. You know, if you had an event happening, you had a gathering with your friends, like, oh, I'm probably just not gonna go, right? If you stay home, your mood gets lower, and then things start to feel like hard work. Okay, now it's like any little thing is just really hard to do. Like, oh, I have to go to the store. That's so hard. Okay, and so you become less active. And that's how the spiral happens. Okay, it just kind of keeps going. Um, and this has to do also with the production of dopamine, okay, and serotonin. Dopamine is the chemical in our brain that helps us experience pleasure, right? So when you're eating something yummy and you want more and you can't stop eating it, that's because dopamine is being released and it's telling you, oh, give me some more, okay? This feels good. And it's also the chemical that mainly gets impacted with drugs such as cocaine and meth, okay? That's why those drugs are so highly addictive because they're very pleasurable. They release copious amounts of dopamine, okay? So we don't want that. Um, but we do want to do certain things on our day to day that can help us, you know, release some dopamine that's going to help us with our daily emotions, right? So if you're stuck in your house, you think you're producing dopamine with your blinds down, haven't showered, there's no sunlight coming in, okay? You're not producing dopamine. And so sometimes we want to feel like this motivation to go out. Like, oh, I won't go to the gym until I feel motivated. Okay. Well, we can wait, you know? But same thing, like sometimes, okay, I don't want to go to get coffee with my friend. I don't feel like it, right? Well, this motivation and this interest and pleasure is not going to come out of nowhere. You have to do it. Okay? You have to do it even if you don't want to. Because dopamine is going to start getting released once you start the activity, not before. Okay? So, you know, and it may not happen right away, right? You may have to kind of do it several times, you know, start retaking your interest again. Um, so, so this is the model for of why behavioral activation works. Okay, so you feel depressed, you have no motivation to do anything, but you start doing it anyway. Okay, even though you don't want to, even though you're gonna complain about it. Okay, you still do it. So you're more likely to have rewarding experiences. Okay, you go out, you see something, you see a baby, you know, and he's cute. And, or I don't know, your friend tells you, oh my God, your hair looks so good today, right? Oh, okay, nice, right? And then, I don't know, someone opens the door for you. Those little things matter, okay? Nature, looking at nature, has been shown to improve dopamine levels and serotonin levels. So you're gonna start having more rewarding experiences, you're gonna feel more motivated, and then you are going to want to do more. Because how many times have you regretted taking a bath? Like, how many times have you said, oh no, I shouldn't have taken that bath? It was horrible. Or going to the gym. I mean, maybe you broke something, but if you take a walk, how many times you come home and you're like, oh, why did I do that? No, right? Usually we feel good after doing it. Oh, I'm so glad I went, right? Even though initiating the task was so difficult. But this is why it's difficult to initiate tasks, okay? Because again, we're expecting to feel so motivated first before we do it, and that's not gonna happen. We have to do it first, and then it'll come, okay? Okay, so this is the slide I was looking for. Um, so we can see the importance of breathing through this. This is a model of panic attacks, okay? Um, Panic attacks are or breathing, I would say, is the most important factor in panic attacks, or the lack of breathing, okay? Lack of breathing and your thoughts. What are you thinking? Um, so let's say that, you first feel there's something's happening in your body, you don't know what it is, and it seems scary, okay? So you notice a physical feeling, you say, my breathing feels odd. And so the way your brain interprets that, so turns out, okay, new studies are telling us that one of the things that happens with panic attacks is that people that experience panic attacks, their brains have become a little bit more sensitive to carbon dioxide. Okay, so because it builds up, because you're not breathing right, it builds up, and your brain detects it and says, you're gonna die. Okay, and a panic attack is not gonna make you, it's not gonna kill you, you're gonna faint first, okay, because you're not breathing, so you're gonna faint, and then you're gonna get up. You should faint for a little bit, but fainting actually helps because then you start breathing again, okay? And so um, they do feel like you're gonna die though, okay? Um, they really send you these physical reactions and thoughts, catastrophizing thoughts uh, about about your imminent death, okay? You're having a heart attack or you're having a stroke, something terrible is happening, okay? That's what you're thinking, but you're not, okay? It's a misinterpretation of what's going on. And your brain, again, because it wants to help you, it deploys all these fight or flight responses, right? The problem here is that these responses are just so exaggerated, so intense, that even if you were in true danger, they wouldn't help you. You would be eaten by a bear if you had a panic attack in front of a bear, okay? Because these are no longer helpful, okay? We want to feel fear, but, enough fear to make us run, not like die or faint, right? So, okay. So the brain misinterprets what's going on, and you start catastrophizing. Could this be dangerous? Okay. So you start having all these fight or flight sensations. Your fight or flight system is activated. You feel apprehensive or afraid. Your anxiety strengthens the body sensations, so you start feeling more sensations in your body that seem very weird and very dangerous. There's, you have like tunnel vision where you're only kind of focused on one thing, and then it makes you hyper focused on certain body sensations. You may hear things like more loud. Um, and so it keeps affecting the way you're breathing. You start thinking this is really bad. And so then you're paying more attention to the body. You notice more symptoms. You feel more afraid. Um, and you have more catastrophizing thoughts. This is getting even worse. I think I'm going to pass out. Feelings of panic quickly escalate, and the cycle continues. Okay? So that all started, maybe because of a physical. It could get it started by a lot of things, a thought, or a physical sensation, or say you did have a heart attack at one point, right? And so now you're very scared of having another heart attack, and so now you don't want to go to like Costco, for example, because you're thinking I won't be able to escape from Costco. Okay, so big places like that are going to create or trigger panic attacks, okay? Because you feel like you won't be able to get out, and you're gonna feel embarrassed, and you're gonna cause an inconvenience for others, okay? You're gonna feel very embarrassed if you faint or if they have to call the ambulance. So all of those emotions trigger a panic attack. Also in close places, like an airplane, right? I can't leave, I can't escape from an airplane. So the idea of I'm gonna get a heart attack in the airplane and no one's gonna be able to help me can trigger a panic attack. Okay? And so it starts affecting the way you're breathing, and then that's where the spiral starts. Okay? So you see the importance of just breathing, right? One of the main interventions for panic attack is first learning what they are, okay? Because if you're still thinking, no, I'm sure it's a heart attack, you're gonna have a panic attack. Okay, you have to be convinced that what you're having is a panic attack. Okay, because once you tell your brain this is a panic attack, your brain says, oh, okay, panic attacks don't kill you. Okay, so it's okay, and then that alone will make it de-escalate. Okay, and then breathing. So very important, breathing, and then the thoughts you're having. Okay, what are you telling your brain? What catastrophizing thoughts are you having? Okay, uh, and then dealing with cognitive distortions. We all have cognitive distortions. Catastrophizing is a cognitive distortion. But again, some of us, if you have a mental illness, you may have it more intensely, more difficult to deal with. But cognitive distortions are errors, erroneous thoughts based on our beliefs about ourselves, the world, and others, which lead to misinterpretations of reality and can cause psychological damage. To better manage these thoughts, you can question your thoughts by asking yourself, is it possible that I am misinterpreting this situation? Am I confusing a thought with a fact? Is this thought 100% true? Okay? And then the same idea of, am I truly in danger? What tells me? Where's the evidence that tells me that I may be in danger right now? What is true right now? Not what I think, not my opinion, okay? What is true right now? And there's a lot of questions that you can make yourself, sort of like this to question and challenge these thoughts, okay? These are just some examples. Okay, how are we going to produce serotonin? Exercise, sunlight. So sunlight helps with vitamin D. Vitamin D helps with serotonin. Um, Therapy, talk about your emotions, journal. Eating a diet rich in tryptophan, that's going to help you. So fish, nuts, some fruits, chicken. And so how are you going to produce more dopamine? Do activities that you like, even if you don't feel like it initially. socialize, okay? Relax. Practice relaxation techniques such as meditation, diaphragmatic breathing, yoga, and progressive muscle relaxation. Sleep well, very important. And I wish I could have talked more about sleep, but we just don't have time. That's like a whole workshop, right? Set small goals. So small goals help because dopamine is about feeling satisfied, right? So if we create small goals that are achievable throughout the day, it's like, yes, I did it. You know, I washed the dishes. So if you start looking at things more like goals, it's going to be more helpful instead of looking at them at these like daunting tasks. Recognize your achievements. Listen to music that makes you feel good. You know, music even helps some patients with Parkinson's move better, right, because of the fluidity. Um, watch a movie, listen to jokes, okay? Laughing produces dopamine. Practice gratitude and help someone. How does it feel when you help someone? When someone tells you, oh my God, you were so helpful, right? And practicing gratitude is so important because remember, our brain, the main purpose of our brain is to help us survive. Okay, that's like it's one job. Okay, so mm, it's always gonna kind of make us look at things in the negative side of things because it's telling us, "Ooh, look at all that can happen," right? So that's why we tend to sometimes when we make up scenarios in our head, they're mostly negative, you know? We don't think, oh, like, what if it goes really well? Like, what if it goes bad? So our brain is doing that in an effort to protect us, okay? But if we practice gratitude, then we're forcing the brain to look at the good things. Like, what is good in my life, right? But it may not do it so automatically. You kind of have to help it, okay? And we were gonna do a relaxation exercise, but we don't really have time anymore. I'd rather go over some resources, and you know, I included some videos on relaxation, so that's gonna be your homework, okay, to do at home. And just go over all of these, okay, because they're all very important. So you know, there's so many people that are always asking me, how do I get a psychologist? Like, it's so difficult to get one, right? And so the directory, Psychology Today, is a directory where you can filter by zip code, you know, online. Do they take your insurance? Do they speak Spanish or English or a different language? Do they is there expertise with a certain community or population or a certain disorder? It's like very helpful. Then the evolution of the human mind, it's a really cool video, it's like 3 minutes, but it really talks about some of the things that I discussed, you know, evolution and why our brain kind of developed the way it did. Uh, Anxiety Explained, I love that video. I show it to my patients all the time because it's this Disney cartoon from like the 70s, but it has such good a good explanation on anxiety. Um, this is a channel for this doctor, Dr. Harris, who does acceptance and commitment therapy, and he has a whole channel on resources. It's like great. The National Alliance on Mental Health, if you want to be more informed about, you know, what's going on locally in terms of groups for loved ones who may be experiencing mental illness. They have groups for families. If you want to volunteer, you know, things like that. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, they have a lot of resources there too. Hotlines and websites to prevent suicide. Short articles on the latest research on psychology. Some books. I see that some of you have Dr. Judy's or Julie book is really good. It has some really good strategies. Then the Happiness Trap. That's Dr. Harris' book on ACT. The Four Agreements. I like that book. Neighborhood Healthcare Mental Health Clinic is a local clinic that provides services for severely mentally ill. Well, it's an outpatient clinic, but a lot of their patients are a little bit more severe. Um, there's oh, sorry, I included some Spanish stuff there. But yeah, I mean, if you speak Spanish, you can look into those, the podcasts. Then the Jacobson's Progressive Muscle Relaxation, very good resource. Um, Guided imagery as well. And then Yoga with Adrienne, that's a really good channel for yoga. And that's it. Well, I hope this was helpful for all of you. Thank you so much.